Good morning. Welcome to Adaptive Chicago Productions. This is Ken Borst, your host for today's show. One of the issues continuously confronting us is transportation. Problems with mainline transit, sometimes problems with ParaTransit. Basically, we are talking today about issues we have been trying to iron out with CTA, the Chicago Transit Authority, for a very long time. Today I have two guests with me. They are Debbie Pittman and Michael Grice. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ken. Welcome. Thank you for welcoming us.
Debbie, I want to start with you. What is the basic problem with CTA? Our viewing public needs to know.
Well, one of the current issues that we are attempting to address is CTA received some funding to put signs up that are supposed to make Chicago more accessible to the blind people. But what they've done is they've put these signs up that say bus stop. And that's all they say. They give no information as far as route or direction or which buses stop at the various bus stops. And it appears as though attempts at getting them to make changes to add more information to these signs seems to not make a difference. And there have been comments that have been made at the CTA ADA Advisory Committee over a number of months regarding this issue, and it appears as though the issue is being ignored.
So they have been non-responsive to anything that has been attempted to communicate with them, right?
That appears to be the case. And the thing about this is that in approximately July of this year, there was a resolution that went out that was written by the City Council, claiming that Chicago is one of the most accessible cities, but that does not appear to be the case when you have signs that give very limited information to blind travelers in the city of Chicago.
Well, I would certainly agree with that because I've been to both New York City and Washington, D.C., and I probably am not supposed to say that here, but I am anyway, so what? both of them cities appeared to be certainly more accessible in other ways. I mean, I haven't had a chance to check out bus stops in either one of those cities, but certainly they are as far as the trains. But how long have we been trying to work on this with them? I think this has been going on for quite a while now.
Well, it's been a number of months. It's been a number of months. And it definitely needs to be addressed and not ignored. At least give some kind of idea that something is happening to at least attempt to address the problem. We recently learned that in Canada they have similar signs, but the signs apparently give more information. They give route information and bus information, and that's what is needed for here in the city of Chicago.
Absolutely. And Mike, feel free to jump in at any time if you want to about the mobility aspects of CTA from the standpoint of a wheelchair user.
Well, the main issue for myself and a lot of wheelchair users is having the gap filler when we needed to get on and off the trains. There's been times where I've had to get on the train and off the train without the gap filler, which isn't, I shouldn't have had to do that, but it took so long for the staff at the station to retrieve the gap filler that and the trains were crowded. I know that a lot of my colleagues I know that use the trains, we often have difficulty with having the gap fillers when we need it, even if we communicate before we even get on the train. It's a problem.
Well, not only is that certainly a safety issue, but there's also a time issue involved in that. I mean,
Right.
They don't know you could be on your way to work, and with the unemployment rate plaguing the disabled community, they don't know that you're not on your way to work, and if you want to be treated as an equal, you have to get to work on time, just as anyone else does. And I would say definitely they, need to get it together faster than that, because it's like as far as the L's are concerned, yes, as it is even for able-bodied people, the doors open and close too quickly sometimes.
The other issue that I know a lot of wheelchair users and people with disabilities that use walkers, crutches, canes have is the city doesn't shovel when there's a lot of snow, so we can't access the bus stop or the bus operators can't deploy the lift because the snow is a lot of times too high for the operator to deploy the lift out where people with disabilities and seniors and mothers that have strollers can get on the bus.
Yeah, well, I know that's been a problem for quite a long time. As a matter of fact, my friend Carolyn Smith, who lives in my apartment building, who is also legally blind, has, as a matter of fact, now uses a walker because she got permanently injured as a result of exiting a CTA bus and landing on ice. And, you know, I don't know, so far, I guess the good Lord has protected me from getting more seriously injured, because there isn't a year go by that I don't fall on the ice at least once. So I know exactly what you're talking about, and you're right about the bus stops with snow, because if I had a halfpenny for every rodeo that I'd been with that situation, I would probably own the Rockefeller Center in downtown New York City. But so, yes, so either Debbie or Mike, either one of you, what is the goal for what strategy has been used in communicating with CTA, and what, hopefully, how soon do you hope that we will get to this goal?
Well, in my opinion, we should have already gotten to this goal, you know, because, you know, CTA is known about the issues that I brought up, but they're just not taking our movement serious.
Yeah, well, I think they're using the cliche, out of sight, out of mind. And that's pretty much what the rest of society and the world in general uses.
Now,
anything to add to that, Debbie?
I want to say, supposedly there had been some kind of plan in place that they were putting to help deal with the snow removal, but we don't know where that is and where it's, at what stage it's at, that it's being addressed. And that's something that's, you know, crucial, because snow for anyone, and it's not just going to help people with disabilities, it's going to help everybody. And also the signs, the bus stop signs, having more information on them, such as route and direction, is crucial, not just for blind people living in the city of Chicago, but also those that might come to Chicago and want to be able to travel and maintain their independence.
I know
that's something that's very crucial.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about with that, because, Debbie, I take buses quite frequently, and I have to tell you, a lot of people come to Chicago to visit either friends or relatives. Many people come here on business, and so they decide to check out exhibits while they're here, and you know, and they air continual frustration, and sometimes are quite abusive to the bus operators, because you know, at the beginning of the show you said it was considered, Chicago's considered to be the most accessible city on earth, but I've heard people say that. It's like, well, wait a minute. If Chicago is the most accessible city on earth, or at least in the United States, how come people who have not been here before can't get the information they need about where to go and how to get there?
Right. Or not, or just can't even rely on the bus stop poles that just say bus stop, as opposed to providing route information as well as direction to help that person maintain their level of independence and not being reliant on other people, because there's not always someone around.
There's not always somebody around, and even if there is, how many times, I'm sure you've been there, done that, Debbie, and I know I have. You know, how many times have you known that there was the presence of a sighted person, but when you ask them a question, they don't speak?
That's right. That's right. Or you ask them a question and they answer and say, I don't know.
Or or they ask you a question about something that's related to blindness or sometimes guide dog related issues, and you're taking the time to explain it because they're cross-examining you without knowing the answer to the question, which is what the first thing they tell you to do in law school not to do. But there you go. You know, you're explaining to that person what's going on, but you don't know that they walked away while you were explaining it.
Yeah, that's
So,
another one.
You know,
Yes.
there exactly.
Yes.
And
I think one of the other components is for the bus operators is lack of training.
lack of training. Oh yeah.
Lack of training when it comes to the lifts on buses.
Lack of training about the lifts, and also I can tell you something
Yeah.
else. I mean,
And I think there's also a percentage of drivers, bus operators, that don't check the lifts
Ahead of time.
when they're starting their ride
Right.
before they leave the barn.
Right.
They don't bother to check to see if the lift is
Working.
working properly.
Right.
yeah. And there's
Yeah.
another thing. There's another thing that the bus drivers, bus operators, there are two more inadequacies that I can come up with as far as lack of information. I can't believe it. Okay, now I have been a guide dog handler. I'm 70 years old and have been a guide dog handler for 41 years. Do you know that when I get on a bus, I mean, at least 3 or 4 times a week, I go to board a bus, and the first thing the bus driver says is that a service dog? Well, you know, I know that they can ask that, but it's just amazing that they still don't know. Hey, look, yes, he is. Why do you think he has a harness on? You know, it's like the first guide dog was trained 94 years ago. Come on, people, get it straight. You know, so that's how it is. And then there's you know, another thing, which is that how many times I have been on a bus and a bus operator will ask me, where do I want to get off? Because the technology isn't working. And, you know, I don't want to tell them where I want to get off. That's nobody's business. You know, and I had a situation once where I did tell a bus operator where I wanted to get off, and somebody overheard it, and they tried to get off the same stop I did so that they could pick my pocket. They weren't successful at doing that because I had quick reflexes, enough of judgment to stop them, but still in all, I mean, it's none of anybody's business where I want to get off, and I just tell them, look, it is your job to call the stops when the technology isn't working. But guess what? Lo and behold, the bus starts up, and the bus starts calling the stops. And he said, seriously, you said the technology wasn't working. They, of course, have no response for that one, but there you go. And then there are other times when the technology isn't working. And so then I'll say, you know, hey, the technology, you know, isn't working. Well, I don't know how to fix that. Or the technology isn't speaking loudly enough.
And
You know, they'll say they don't know how to fix that, but guess what? Then it's suddenly, inconveniently, it's fixed.
right. And
Surprise, surprise.
And to your point, south side versus north. I've used buses on both sides of the city, but I've noticed a difference that bus operators on the north seem to be more in tune to what to expect versus the south side. So I have noticed a difference when I use the main line on certain sides of the city of Chicago.
You know, Mike, I'm glad you pointed that out because I don't take bus routes on the south side very often, but but I'm glad you pointed that out because, of course, our viewers need to know that, and now that our shows go on YouTube, we're able to get the word out more successfully than we have in the past. But yes, I'm very happy that you've pointed that out. And really, I mean, this is a serious problem, and they've been, it's really been a big deal. And I'm glad now that they've got the technology to call the stops, because long before we ever had that, bus drivers never wanted to, and they would always tell you where to sit so they could remember to see you. They would remember to call your stops, and I would tell them, no, that's not how it works. It doesn't matter whether you could see where I'm sitting or not. It's your job to call all the stops. Right. And it doesn't just benefit blind and visually impaired people. Right. It does benefit everybody, because sighted people become so preoccupied oftentimes with conversations or on their mobile phones that they don't know when they get to their bus stops. Many times I've had to tell sighted passengers how they will know when they will get to a bus stop and landmarks that they will see when they get there. So it's a continuous problem that they really need to address, and among other things. Either one of you have anything more to add to this?
I would also say it's lack of outreach in my perspective, from the CTA's point, because they're not really promoting mainline, because I've gotten on many routes with other riders with disabilities and just ask them, are you familiar with mainline? And shockingly enough, those riders have said that, no, I'm not. And I've been trying to get information, but I don't know where to go to educate myself.
Well, it's funny because they used to have, RTA used to have travel instructors working with people on the various options and showing people what to do, and I guess they don't have that anymore.
I think they still have it, but it's not exposed like it was back in the day.
Yeah.
The exposure is not there, or the outreach is not there like it was.
And one thing I want to say, in relation to those bus stop signs that only say bus stop, the National Federation of the Blind of Illinois is reaching out to CTA through the ADA CTA Advisory Committee and encouraging input to the CTA ADA Advisory Committee. We're asking that people send in comments to the CTA ADA Advisory Committee regarding those bus stop signs to address that issue of those signs not providing enough information, and encouraging people to send in comments to the chair of that committee at igomez, IGOMEZ, hyphen Fierro, FIERRO, at transitchicago.com, so that those comments can be read to address the fact of those bus stop signs having no pertinent information to indeed help make our city more accessible as it claims to be.
Have there been a lot of comments sent in as far as you know?
Well, we just started this part of it because we've been sending in comments, and the comments that come in, they're read at those meetings. So we know that there needs to be more comments read so that they can understand that this is not a situation that is going to go away, that the National Federation of the Blind of Illinois is going to continually bring this issue to them until it gets properly addressed.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, well, I just got the warning. We're just about out of time. Do either one of you have anything to say to close out the show?
I would say the other issue that the disability community has is the issue with ParaTransit not being always able to get trips when you need them or want to travel in your community. Just because you have to call 24 hours in advance from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m.
You know, that's pretty inconvenient, but there are other cities that I know of where they have even more time that you have to give to reserve the ride. Now, my friend Diana, who lives in St. Louis, told me you have to reserve the ParaTransit rides a week in advance, not a day, a week.
Right.
See, there's something that's a whole big issue with that, because in 1996, there was something that was put in place that took away that 24-hour window, and it was supposed to be an on-demand ride service, which is how we got the TAP part of the service, and that was supposed to be covering the on-demand ride service. But all of a sudden, now when you read the regs say that ParaTransit is a quote-unquote on-demand service. So someone has gone back and did some kind of footwork with that wording. And I am actually, as under Concerned Citizens of ParaTransit, in the process of doing research to find out where that wording was changed, because that was the whole reason why we got TAP.
Well, it's time now to wrap up the show, and this is Kenny Borst with Adaptive Chicago Productions. Thank you, and have good holidays. Bye-bye.